Hello, everyone. It is London from Future Cannabis Project here at you again for another episode of Fire is Fire. I'm here in the garden. Unfortunately, my fireplace is out of fire, so I wasn't able to do that part of the show for you all. But you can see we're in a luscious green garden. I've got peppers, I've got cannabis, I've got everything going around me, and I'm excited to chill out with some amazing people today. I'm going to let them do their introductions themselves. So, without any further ado, let's get the show rolling.
What's up, everybody?
How's it going? My name is Jameson Wellborn, and this is RJ. We are actually missing our third counterpart today, Brian. He is tied up, but we've got a super special guest today that we're super excited about. It's our first guest on the show. We're going to be bringing in Colin Palmer, a true OG in the space of Vessel Life Science. Super excited about this. He's been, an original on Hash Church and been doing a lot in the space and very excited to talk about him. So without further ado, we're going to bring him on.
What's
up, everyone? Colin?
Hey, guys. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming
Thanks
on,
so much
man.
for taking the time, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, man. Excited.
Absolutely. Well, I want to just dive in because I think there's a lot to unpack here. I think that, we're going to be, taking some deep dives down some rabbit holes. So I've digested and consumed, all the information I could about you out there. And I think that there's a ton to unpack, but I think the best way to start is kind of just give us a background about, your journey up into cannabis to this point. I know your relationship with the plant started very young, and kind of just give everybody a background who doesn't know, who Colin Palmer is and how you got started in cannabis. And I know we're majorly involved in music side of things, and kind of, I think we're going to lead into that later. So just sort of start out with the cannabis journey and then we'll kind of come back to the musical side of things.
Yeah, no worries. Great. So, so for me, it started at a really young age. I have two brothers that were, heavily influential, and along with a large group of friends that they had that were, around us growing different types of cannabis at an early age. And I was given and gifted seeds by all of these individuals. And ultimately, I started growing around 14, 15, I was playing around with things. 15, 16, I was really growing things. And, I started all these plants, and, I started just diving into growing cannabis because I grew up in an agricultural kind of lots of farms around me, lots of open space, and lots of the ability to actually plant these things and actually grow them quite large. And at that age, a 12, 13-foot plant was quite a sight, because you're just exploring, and you're kind of this giddy young sponge that's just soaking everything up. And
so what were the first things you grew? What were those seeds that you were gifted?
So a lot of the seeds that I was gifted was from were just it seemed like old skunk varietals that were very just really skunky and really cat piss in nature. And then I was gifted a lot of things that were very terpenoline forward that wouldn't finish very well and weren't very very airy in structure. And a lot of this stuff wasn't, quite honestly, very good cannabis. And then through the growing lots of different types of bag seed and different things that were given to you, that became apparent to me that they all have a personality, and there's a difference between a lot of these things. And I'm really intrigued by iteration and immediacy in terms of doing whether it's like art, you get an immediate response from it, and that's kind of how cannabis growing for me was really, really intriguing because of that. You could see the results of the things that you were doing, and I really like to hone in on all of those attributes of learning about whether it was why a plant went too long into November and why others finished earlier. And at that age, those are the basic things you're trying to learn about.
What was that age? Like, what was that age when it, like, were plants always that to you, or was there like a clearly defining moment when, you were growing two plants side by each, and that kind of clicked that, oh my God, there's this diversity within, and not understanding fully what you were at, or, was there an epiphany type moment for you with plants at a young age, and what age was that, if there was?
Yeah, so that was around 16 for me, where I started really saying to myself, wow, this is different, and that's when we started really paying attention to what varietals were around us at the time. And hey, this is more, delimonene forward. At the time, we didn't know what these words were, but they smell like lemon to me. Very, very human terms were coming to mind, very culinary-esque terms as we see today still. That's what I started really noticing. And then, I started asking questions on BCGA, which is the British Columbia Growers Association, and people like Vic High and Old Timer, and, Eric 77 was on there, I believe, IMGC and all these other individuals that were later on, Laughing Moon, and then eventually that turned into Overgrow. But I started asking questions, and that also heavily influenced me because there was immediacy on information, and I could take that back and learn from Vic and what Old Timer was talking about. And also, I must say, I do remember seeing Brothers Grimm on there quite often as well. So, all these individuals, which are much older than I am, were feeding me a lot of information that I could then iterate on. And that's when I started correlating things and started reading about, okay, so these are catalogs of seeds. Okay, now I have things to look at that they resemble. Okay, this must resemble these phenotypes and chemotypes now resemble this. And it was that type of stuff that was allowing me to bridge the gap at a time that was really, really fetal and, just very vulnerable as a grower. Your very first stages, you're learning about like, what is an F1 and F2, what are thrips, like all these things you quickly learn about pretty quick, by design. And that's kind of what drove me to getting really into it, is I could make things, I could make sprays, I could make teas, I could create, and those were the things and parts of it that sucked me in at a really young age and kind of allowed me to, incorporate photography and, kind of just blend all these things that I really like to do, which is just make things and see the results of them. And that's honestly the spirit of kind of science and art in a lot of respect is, those things drew me in and they kept me there. I mean, let's face it. I remember getting cuttings from Eric 77 at one point when I was really young, like 17 or 18 or something. And a note came with it and it said, if you want to save a strain, give it away. And that always stuck with me because they were so willing to just give me the tools that I needed to explore. And NCGA is also another group that, I was growing the Blue Widow and a lot of different things that were just, to me, very fascinating and really engaging.
So 17, 18, you're getting cuts in the mail. Are your parents super supportive? Are they completely unaware? Are you just, really good at keeping things on the down low? Like, what was the situation like that?
A little bit of both. There was some tension, but there was also support, knowing that you obviously really care about this.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it just, nothing was ever killed. Nothing was ever done about it. And I just kept doing the thing,
Very cool. Very cool.
And sorry, Mom, but, there were times that there were some fibs in there, like, hey, I got rid of things and,
Yeah.
They really weren't gone,
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
But at the same time, I think that really truly shaped my journey, and I've kept these things ever since. It's been it's been quite the process, to be honest.
That's very, like, I mean, that's very cool that I know what how long you've kept some things, and we'll touch on that later. And I think that's very cool. Like, talk a little bit about your journey transitioning into hash. Like, was that something that was prevalent from the beginning, where, you and your friends were cultivating with the intention of creating hash, or, was hash smoking prevalent growing up? Or was that something that came later on? Like, talk about how that sort of came about. What did that evolution look like?
Yeah. So, that's, the evolution for me, I think, was, it was a tough evolution, I think, in terms of what, coming out of the box and turning a cheek to the world and not being able to share about the things that you're deeply passionate about for as long as I've been doing that is really difficult. And I know there's others out here that share that same feeling, and I think that now, that we can talk about it, it does still feel odd, to be able to just openly talk about all these things that we were told for so many years that you just couldn't. You had to go through so many layers of protection and only talk to these certain people. And it was a tight knit circle. There was an IRC chat dedicated to this. That was like this deep web thing. And that's where a lot of the original cuts were actually passed on.
Yeah.
So I know I keep touching on a lot of that, but I think it's important for people to understand that there was the Silk Road still happening, if you want to call it a thing, and the sharing of collective minds going on since the start. I mean, it's been going there.
The access was just much more difficult. I mean,
it was very difficult.
How hard did you have to work to find those things and then post and gain that trust? And
right.
I think that the access to information and the speed at which you could learn now compared to back then is, wild.
And we don't have, it's different. Today you can go and order things, and it just wasn't like that. You really, and to get something verified was very difficult. And I think today, with things like medicinal genomics and the ability to do qPCR testing, we can actually do things that we never could before. But there was less people growing these varietals, and it was more important to share them than it was today. In terms of keeping them alive. There's huge nurseries now. We just didn't have these.
100%. So would you say, like, when did you start?
Hold on a sec.
Or sorry, go ahead.
Can we just get into our normal thing for 2 seconds and just talk about what we're dabbing on? And take a dab?
No, absolutely. We can definitely take a dab. I am about to go in on some papaya. It was dropped off by a friend that I'm quite excited about.
Ooh, I'm also going in on some papaya after my dab of the Platinum Sweet Congo by Kind Selections.
This is some lemon cake, fresh press.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna get into the lemon cake a little bit later too, but the lemon cake is something pretty special. So that's awesome.
Y'all know I love the lemon, and I love the sound of that lemon cake. Sounds absolutely delicious. What's the heritage on that? Do you know what the breed is from?
Yeah, so
he knows the breeder too.
Yeah, I may know that guy. So the lemon cake were seeds that were gifted to myself that were given to me as the quote air quotes land wraiths, right? What they really turned out to me to at least turned out to be to me back then were a very lemon forward East Asian sativa, if you will. That's the best descriptor I could give. was really, really, really loud. And we then selected that, kept that as a mom. The next year, I grew that and grew indoor a bunch of new packs that I'd acquired. And we had acquired this skunk one crossed to NL5 times tie. And I ended up selecting 4 males from that and collected the pollen from that and grew the lemon cake out the following season and pollinated as much of the plant as I possibly could at a young age, as being as uneducated as I was at that time, and made seeds. So from there, we went through and selected through, I guess, a couple hundred seeds that we had grown over time, and selected moms throughout that time, and narrowed it down to 10 moms, which then came down to 5 moms, which they came down to 1. And then we kept that one, which is the one that I have now. So that's how we did it. And through the guidance of people like Vic, of course, actually, that was when I was just asking as much as I could from people like that, and trying to take in the extreme knowledge that as horticulturalists they actually were bringing to the table at a very, very, very primitive time.
But those were the building blocks. You know what I mean? That's when all that kind of core information was being moved around. Before, even the big forums like Overgrow came along, and I came on Toke City a couple of years after that. So by those times, things were out there a little bit more. But yeah, without you guys, the originals, kind of getting things started, we wouldn't have had those cornerstones. So blessed to you, sir.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
So I want to get into first experiences with extracts, and first dabs or swings or nails or whatever it was, and was it an immediate light on? Was that what drove you to start creating extracts, or did the creation of extracts start more organically just through curiosity? Like how did that begin for you?
So to me, extracts were, at the time, we never, none of us really washed straight flowers at that time. It just wasn't something that we were told to do. It was take your dried trim, put it in a 3-bag set, and mind you, I bought my first set from, they weren't actually bubble bags. They were just like a 3-bag set off of the Isolator website at the time, and just the basic 220. I think there was a 73 and maybe a 45 bag or something. I don't remember at the time, but it was just the 3 bags. And I remember reading that you could turn your material into extracts, and I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but I started exploring it, and I've got this bag set. I took a bunch of stuff together and just put as much as I could in there and started mixing, right? And I just started, the first time I pulled the bag set, man, I'll never forget that feeling, that first pull, and just being like, what am I looking at? You know what I mean? And for real, it's that
100%.
Again,
100%.
that immediate return. And mind you guys, this is like hot washing. I was like the middle of the day, you know what I mean? But you're doing it, right? And I immediately started just trying to research, and there's just nothing out. There's nothing to learn. There's nothing out there. There's no Marcus.
This was 98, 99. Like, what year was it?
99. And
99.
And right before I had even got introduced to Marcus and bubble bags. And once I got introduced to that, that's when I bought the first kit, which I still have today, which is the 25 micron. That's like a big banana bag. It's this long sock. And I remember we used to hang it in our, we cleaned on our bathroom, and we'd wash in there, and we would hang it and drain in our shower. So never forget, like, doing all the stuff that's wrong, like trying to hang it on the shower head and, just all the wrong stuff. And
ISO
just
washing bags. Yeah.
making terrible hash. I mean, I'm talking like,
Yeah.
just, I mean, we thought it was great at the time, but, it's fun to look back at photos and the things that we used to think were acceptable and good. And, it's really amazing. But my point is that through those iterations and through that trial and error, and quite frankly, failing so many times to make something great, and then ultimately learning about it, what wasn't working over time. Not only was it learning about the temperature of the water and the ambient temperature of the air around you, it was also learning about the varieties that actually were worth it. And that was really immediate for me. In around 2000, 2001, I started to immediately understand that this variety doesn't work, that variety does. And the idea of percent wasn't really there for me, but the idea of this resin is better and this resin is in a more abundance.
Did you make
Yeah.
the connection to the science? Did you make the connection to the plant? Did you just make the connection that, like,
It's too early for me.
these two resins are produced different, but I don't know what, like, where were you at? Like,
That's what
point
drove
did you see?
me.
At what
Right.
point? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I think you're asking me is what drove me to learn more about those things. And I think, to me, it was really, what really clicked to me was that this hash was cleaner. You could see how much it would burn differently. Like, that was really apparent. And that was also, the color was also really apparent. And the amount that was there. Again, did I draw the correlation to heads and trichome heads? It was too early for me at the time to say that I was thinking that way, because I honestly was just trying to get a grasp on, can I grow good resin, right? And yeah, I mean, I could grow great. You could see that it was getting better and better and better and better. But I was trying to really focus on those things in a very basic kind of way. And then it started, 2002, 3, that's when it started to really, terms like trichome heads and Marcus's, research and all the other things that were being shared on the forum started to come to light. That's when I started to really pay attention to, okay, this is even deeper than I imagined. And this is where I want to spend a lot of time. And I want to spend a lot of time on understanding why these plants are producing specific trichomes and what can I do to influence that. And that was really, really I had an epiphany at that time. And that was from the exchange, though, that I was able to have with people like Marcus, though, and the exchange, really, that dialogue sparked the curiosity to try things that maybe would not work, but but we could actually iterate on it and say, hey, this didn't work. Cold washing in the middle of the winter, trying to wash with snow. I mean, we used to try all
everything.
All of it. Yeah. So, and then it just snowballed, and then you just get deeper and deeper and deeper, and it gets more macro. So that's where the curiosity for me kind of drove me to. And then varietals were, I've just been infatuated with it. There was, my era had the whole G13 saga. If anyone remembers that, the Me, Myself, and I G13, the Airborne G13, the government G13, all these varietals that we all claim to be the one. It's kind of like the sour diesel ChemDog saga. It's like, it's the one. It's, and it's really questionable what the one is at this point. It's so murky.
Yeah, I mean, some we're just never gonna know. I mean, some it's the secrets died with some people. So
Yeah.
the like, when was the moment when you kind of realized that, like, I've gotten to the point where I've absorbed all the information that I can absorb online and anywhere, and it's now time to kind of step off that ledge, me to move forward and realize, like, there's nobody to look to, and I'm trailblazing in solventless, like in specifically, because I know that's, you know, been your main focus. Like, was there a moment that realization took place, or was that just kind of like, hey, it's always kind of felt like walking in the dark?
You know, this is what I can say. I'll never stop learning, and I'll
100%.
never stop being humbled by the science and minds and creativity that's around me, and that's partly what inspires me, I think. And I also think that, you know, there's an analogy I can use is I enjoy walking into a dark room and bumping around for as long as it takes to find the light.
Yeah.
That little crack of light.
Yeah.
And open the door eventually to this beautiful mirage of what you're after. And that's something I'm comfortable in, and I enjoy that uncertainty.
Yeah.
And you know, you're not always successful with that, though, you know, and I just want to point out that, you know, you just have to keep trying the things that you believe in.
Mhm.
And eventually the many ideologies or ideas will come together, and
Mhm.
like harmonics, it'll come at the perfect time,
Yeah.
and then it'll dissipate, right? And you'll get that idea. And I also just want to say is, you know, I'm always looking to all the directions around me and listening, and I'm trying to do my best to decipher what's noise and what's helpful, and that's nearly impossible. However, I think just believing in your own ideas and not focusing on what other people are doing is a lot healthier than focusing on what other people are doing.
100%. I agree with that 100%.
So
Has
that's
being,
what I'll say to that, is that I'll never stop learning. And, you know, I started putting my head down from you know, I was just kind of brought up that way, to be honest, is to keep your head down and work hard, and the work should speak for itself. And the less you have to say, the better place your head's going to be in, because it means you can focus on the next thing, and you don't have to focus on the thing that's now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I really try to just try to focus on the things that I'm interested in. And if that ends up resonating with someone, then that's awesome. I mean, you know, that's all I can hope for, you know.
That's very cool. You do a lot of work with PAX in the PAX pod. I want to kind of just touch on that and then dive into, you know, what made you, you know, decide to work with those guys, what, you know, what attracted you about the actual hardware, and where you think it can go. Like, I know in a couple of your other interviews you talked about, you know, working with the Lemon G and a few other cultivars that, you know, were difficult to work with, and you know, as much as you can go into that, I'd like to, like, you know, explore you know, what you're comfortable kind of talking about there, because I'm super, you know, I'm sure, you know, everybody's super interested in that as well.
Yeah. So first, I think first thing is first. I think PAX has really taken the right steps to select the components through toxicology that really, when they put together, they actually they're not toxic. You know, they've done a lot of research on the components and the way that those components interact with, you know, thermodynamics and different types of material. And, you know, sure, you could say that there's certain things that they're not doing, but I think that the things that they are doing are light years ahead in terms of safety, you know, and delivery than I've seen with any company today. And, you know, excuse me, I'd also say, you know, the material that I've put into their platforms to date in terms of the pod system, they perform substantially better than any 510 I've ever used. And I really mean that. And that comes from just, again, the way that they've selected the material and the way that it deals with thermodynamics. And it's a closed loop system. That's how PAX has kind of chosen to do it. And it speaks to the pod. So the temperature is actually staying at, let's say, 490 or 500 or whatever you're setting it to be for your material. And that's not what a control voltage device can do. Sure, this can have sensors to say that it's generally getting around these temperatures, but it's not precisely staying at these temperatures. So you're always going to get to a set point, and then it's like a sharp curve, or it's like a triangle wave. And then you have like a sine wave, which is very soft, and that's more of what I believe PAX has designed for us. It's kind of attack, sustain, release, ADSR. It has this the ability to stay at these temperatures through your draw on your pool, and that's what I enjoy about PAX's ideology and their forms. And I'm really excited for all the possibilities for that platform.
That's very cool. So like sort of the part B of my question, where in the previous interview, I think it might have been with Eric Volsky of Pure Pressure, you talked about working with Lemon G, I think specifically as a tough, greasy trike to work with. Is there, can we go into that a little bit, or is
Sure.
I'd love to. I know there's a lot of people who deal with stuff like that and would love to pick your brain. So I'd love to, hear what you have to say about it.
So greasy cannabinoids.
Yes.
You're dealing with anything like a blackjack, or trying to think of other, a Jack Herrera or Lemon G, or the Piff, or the Piff is a little tackier, but still greasy. Any of these types of varietals, you're going to want to make sure you do short wash times, and you can't really care about yield. If you're trying to do this and you're going to expect to get 3.5 to 4, 5%, you're never going to get that. If you're comfortable at 1.8 to 2% and you want to make head stash, those varietals are going to be something that you could wash, and do short washes, and do many shorter washes, and grade out the material and decide how you want to put that back together. Greasy material degrades really quickly because it's harder to grab, and a lot of plant material over time in your washes will dump back into your collection. So the more that you collect and the shorter time you spend with it, the better curated you could create your end product. So you could have different grades of that said material. Now, getting to pressing that material, much lower temperatures, things like that are really on your side, and using 36 micron or below is recommended.
What's the finest micron that you would feel comfortable pressing through for a final?
You could do 5 to 10. I mean, or really anywhere 5 to 36. I mean, really? Depends on the material and where your temperatures are. If the material is extremely clean, like super clean, 6-star, you should be able to get down there on the micron size.
I just never thought like 5 was attainable, really. But I guess it really is just material dependent.
Listen, anything's attainable. Never forget that.
Fair. I'll take it.
You talk a little bit in that interview about the Deadhead OG. From my experience, OGs don't really wash that well. Was that a similar experience there?
Yeah. Low yield on that, but it was a great profile. And we at that time we were exploring a lot, so we were able to wash a lot of these varietals and take the data down. And it was more about learning about what could this do And the OG, I mean, look, the Deadhead OG had this garlicky OG to it, and it actually was a better yielder than I thought. And when I pulled out a gram that I kept, a retail gram that I kept, the nose on it was really interesting because I didn't remember the same nose. Maybe because we were going through so many different types of varietals, but it wasn't as impressive to me at the time. And when I pulled out the sample, I was like, wow, it's actually really good. It's pretty.
How many days did you take that one, Colin?
I think we took it 10 weeks. I think that one, it went until it was done. I think that and we started that from seed. That was from seed, that varietal. We had some Mycotech seeds that were left over, and we ended up popping those. And yeah, I mean, I'm always dismissive of OGs in general for the end goal that I'm looking for. But if you're a flower guy, depending on the cross of it, it's OG's just not a great yielder, and it's very finicky. It's susceptible to a lot, and it can be difficult. Great smoke though.
Okay, I want to get into some more polarizing questions that we can kind of maybe rock the boat with. Okay, I want to talk about hash numbers and calculating yields.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that hasn't been standardized at all throughout, the industry, and everybody's kind of got their own way of calculating their yields the same way, these big public LPs have the same way of calculating their cost per gram. Everybody bakes it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know if this is something, like, if you think that there's a more scientific approach in the way that we can start comparing apples to apples. Something I've thought about is like measuring active water content of these harvested plants, and then using math to apply an equation rather than sort of an industry standard of a gram dry is 5 wet. And do you think that, like, all this yield information that we're getting and then judging and making selections or making our buying purchases on, like, it's quite skewed information? And I just wonder, is that something you think about as an industry we need to address, or it's like, hey man, everybody's just got to stay in their own lane until they figure that out themselves?
So here's my take on cost. All right. So here's a good way to look at it. What you're alluding at is standardization, right? This like idea that we're all gonna land on the same number, and 1 gram is gonna yield X amount times 454 that pounds at 3.5% yield, right? But what does that like you're asking is, what does that truly mean at a deeper level? And what I would say to that is that, because the cultivation and let's just call it farming is not standardized at all, like not at all. We have different weight classes with resin that's grown on that specific weight class that is different in amounting in different amounts, right? We're not there after the weight, we're there after the resin, right? And ultimately you're after the weight of that resin. So it's very difficult to decipher when someone says, oh, I have 70% water weight per pound and my yield's 5%. That's what dry, that's 22% or 21% or something like that, right? That generalization that we give ourselves is not reality. And to your point. So I think that you have to we have a lot of work to do to understand what that language and what that should be, because right now this is just us scraping to figure out like some kind of understanding of this.
And I know you personally are only measuring your yields on your I don't want to misspeak. So when you say, oh, that she did 3.6 for me, that's 3.6% of what? Of
17,000 grams, 18,000.
No, but like of what you like, what the 70 to the 120 or the 70
Yeah,
to the
so
one?
it's 120 to 90 for me. We don't include anything outside those ranges in my
Yeah, exactly. So
in
that's why I
what we
thought, I think
do.
it's very
I don't
interesting.
know, I can't speak for everyone in the world. I know that I've been told there's been some sneaky people out there, but we try to stick to, we're really old school. Like, we pull every bag, we do every single bag, and we separate everything. We don't do these big single bag 73, 90 bag dumps.
Yeah.
It's just, I find that quality suffers severely when you do things like that.
Well, I
And
think
you're
that there's guys in the industry running a 190 and a 40, and then
Yeah,
grabbing the 40, measuring it, and then being like, we got 8%,
got
and
it. Yeah,
and
e-
so that's kind
exactly.
of where,
Right.
yeah,
And that's, there's levels to this, guys. The different heads are going to produce different quality. And I think that's also, something I invite everyone to look at is, if you're not hitting a certain melt point on your product, you should take a hard look at what you're doing. Because in this day and age, there's plenty of varietals that can give you incredible melt. I mean, it's never been easier. It's where we came from was very different. I mean, we had
100%.
very few varietals that would work. So I would say that, that's something I would definitely recommend everyone to be aware of. It's important. Your quality is hinged on not only the input material, but your ability to filter that material. So
Yeah.
it's not always quality in, quality out.
100%. 100%. So moving to a different hot topic, the combining of different terpenes, esters, thiols from different plants, and then the vaporization of those at high temperatures. I know it's something we kind of touched on yesterday, and maybe not the most popular topic, but we're here to talk about everything. So I know you've done a lot of research on this, so I'd love to get your take on it.
Yeah, look, we all love cannabis, and we love this plant so much. With that, we have to understand that there's a lot of toxic chemicals that this plant in high amounts can produce. Mainly these analytes and thiols, and let's just call one of them out just for an example, is pulegone. Pulegone is toxic above 4%. There are varietals that have this in it, and I think it's really important to make sure that when you're doing extraction, you understand that you have a responsibility to not only yourself but also the people around you that you're giving this medicine to, that you don't actually poison them in the process of in the pursuit of trying to make something that's great. High terpene varietal or high terpene extraction is amazing with the right counterparts, and it can be really enjoyable and super relaxing, and a great thing to be doing. But with that takes a certain eye, and I think one thing a place that I'm arriving at is taking a harder look at what happens when I start stacking things and I start doing these deconstructive extraction, and then reconstructive product SKUs, or just reconstructive grams of different material in different ratios. There's things that are going to happen when you do that, that are just abnormal. So I've really been paying attention to that, and I think it's and I truly believe that other producers should be really cognitive of this.
I think that's something serious that everybody needs to pay attention to. I mean, especially up here in Canada, like there's no onus on health. Like, you submit a product to Health Canada, they're not checking if it's safe. They're just checking boxes. Like, the onus is on the cultivator. So I mean, I think that's a really good point. I wanted to ask you about large scale commercialization of solventless extraction, and where you think we're at with that technology, do you think that there will ever be a point where we can design our way to a system where we're doing massive commercial scale and producing craft quality? Or do you feel that there's a ceiling to ultra scale solventless extraction?
I think that it's right today, there's a ceiling on what horticulturally we can do, right? Like, just because I could make it doesn't mean you could provide that flower for me in this form, right?
So you feel as though the limitation is in the horticultural side and not the machinery design side?
What I'm alluding to is that we have to do this together. It's going to take agriculture and super smart horticultural practices with great IPM management and the right team to care about all those things, right? And then on the flip side, it's going to take another team of individuals that know how to harvest that material, right? 100%. And all these things have to be thought about. And it's a production if we're going to go that big, we're going to have to think that this way. And it's a different mindset than me wanting to bag, 5-pound bags at a time and then try to freeze them. It's a totally different way of thinking about it. So yes, I believe these things can be done.
Yeah.
Is it
if the care and intention that's put into the craft post-harvest practices is able to be emulated and replicated on a mass scale, then you're saying it would be possible. But at this point in time, we haven't been able to do that. I think that's a really cool way of answering that question. And I didn't think you were going to answer it like that. That's awesome.
Look, the technology is there. It's not about can we wash enough in a shift? That's not the question anymore. It's, can we get the material that produces the kind of quantity and quality that we need to, and enough of it, like lots of it, because you could wash easy 100,000, 200,000 grams in a 12-hour day. It's not hard.
Yeah, for sure. Would you agree with that, RJ? Like, do you think
only
that
220 pounds?
Yeah, washing that amount of material in a workday is definitely, with the equipment we have, that's no problem. But I totally agree with Colin. Like, it's just, we are limited by the amount of fire cannabis that we can have provided to us. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, we're not there, especially in Canada. So no, I completely agree. And if our American brothers and sisters down there are saying that, and they're a little bit more further ahead of us with regards to large scale fire cultivation, we're kind of lacking in that department. And we can unpack that a bit more too. But yeah, I think on the extraction side, things have come such a long way. It hasn't been a short amount of time either, right? Mm-hmm. Like for hydrocarbon, it's been 10 plus years for good quality, solventless. I'd say a good 6 or 7 years, like just pressing hard. So, this has taken a lot of time, and there's been a lot of money spent, just trying to put a good quality product out there. So it all comes down to
the access to the material that these large scale solventless extractors have is let's be honest, of a lower quality than the guys washing in the brew bins. So I think that that's a really good a different angle to look at it, and I think it's a pretty fair angle. I have a question for both of you. Colin, in your peer pressure interview, you talk about the e-nail being the best, your opinion being the best way to smoke melt, which I think is pretty much across, the community generally agreed. And this is, might be a silly question, but this is my question is, why is it that with rosin and other extracts, that the community, myself included, agree that a torch and a hot piece of quartz is so much better than an e-nail, even an e-nail with a piece of quartz.
Well, it
What's your
depends on the
opinion on that?
material. I think it really starts there. If you're going to start with, well, let's back it up a second. We never had dabrites or these like temperature control abilities. It was, 90 seconds on, 60 seconds off, like whatever your methodology was, and, yeah, some of us had, I've had tons of little IR guns and stuff, but we didn't have the ability to be exact on temperature. And then beyond that, we weren't thinking about what temperature was, for so long, people were taking these like 700+, Fahrenheit, temperature dabs. And, they never even understood what it actually tasted like. Right. So it's, fast forward to now, we have all these tools, and, the e-nail wasn't thought to be used at low temperatures, other than people like Marcus and other hash heads that were really, really in tune with flavor and the nascent chemicals that are there and their boiling points. So, I think it's one of those things where the e-nail has been so consistent because it is actually an accurate temperature, and using a blowtorch is really kind of shooting from the hip, even though some people might have a really nice sweet spot that they can just say, I don't need that. I time it for this much time and let it sit for that much time. I don't know. It's like 3 to 5 minutes each time you want to use your nails, or your quartz. So I think that's another reason why I truly like the e-nail, is because it's an accurate temperature, and it just gives you wherewithal as to like where you should be. And each resin has needs to be, at a different temperature. I have resin that goes from anywhere from 480 to 700. Just depends on the purity of it, or what other terpenes are there, or esters or analytes or thiols, like whatever else is there is going to dictate that the way that it reacts. Like even using this electronic, this Puffco here, this has I notice a lot of nuance. I notice all the material has a different reaction to all of these devices, and temperature is never the same. I don't have a standardized temperature that I could carry across even each banger. I mean, banger to banger, there's different temperatures, So that's the nuance in it, right? But it's something that I really like, is keeping low temperature and understanding where it should be.
Do you use a standard Puffco?
No, I use the Pro.
Okay, Pro?
Yeah, the Pro is, so here's why I appreciate the Pro. I can use hash, I can use rosin, I can use isolated THCA, solventless THCA in it. And I can set different temperature ranges for myself. And I can use it super easy. Yeah, it's there's not a lot to hate about it, other than that it's electronic. Yeah. It does the job, but does it taste like a rig? No. It's a very different experience.
Fair. Okay.
But
granted.
Is it good for what it does? Yeah. I honestly, I think why it's really exciting for me is because it gets people that aren't into hash into hash.
100%.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
Okay, so to back it up just a little bit,
yeah.
I got a call that was kind of distracting and I kind of missed. I really wanted to get into like the e-nail thought train, and then I kind of missed that. But I wanted to talk about Jermichael and like how that kind of changed everything in terms of hash consumption, at least for the melt community. I don't even know, like way back,
Get into it, man, because most people don't know. So you gotta like You got to unpack
Yeah,
that.
you should unpack that for them.
Okay, so for me, it was like a thing where like the e-nail, you know, a lot of people were just slamming melt into the e-nails, and it was like working out, but like the whole back end of the hoot was charred and getting gross, and you'd have to really just like dig out that kind of like hashy soot if your melt wasn't of a specific quality, and even if it was and you're smashing big dabs, you kind of just got to dig a little bit out anyways. And we hadn't developed the cleaning techs, so and honestly I don't know if Jermichael was who it was or who came about it. Like, I don't know if you have any optics on that, but it's basically putting a little screen over top of the e-nail bowl and melting your dab onto that, and it would kind of filter out some of that non-melty material and keep your e-nail a lot cleaner and keep everything a lot cleaner, but just the flavor that you would get off just the pure melty heads was just like mind-boggling. That's what changed things for me, is just like experiencing the hash flavor was great, but experiencing just the resin heads, like, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. That's why hash is, you know, I always say we're all smoking hash anyway. It's just you have biomass attached to it, you know. But yeah, isolated, it brings out a different characteristic of the plant, and it really does give you good insight as to how strong something or a varietal actually can be. It's really, really, really awesome. There's nothing like it.
So like that's the difference with like using a banger now and just slam and melt into a banger, is like it's a better world, because, you know, like my beef with e-nails is there's not really any with a program that allow for a proper dab.
Why do my dabs taste better without an e-nail? Like,
because the e-nails are constantly ramping up or over ramping due to the sensor, right? Mm-hmm. There needs to be like as soon as it senses a dab in there, it needs to slower ramp up and then finish at a lower temperature before resetting itself, you know, sometime later. That's my personal opinion, because that's why I've moved away from them completely. And now I use a heat gun. So like that's my jam. I use a heat gun.
So convection's your choice.
Yeah. Unless I use like a slurper or a blender, and then I have to use the torch because it just doesn't fit with my current setup.
Got it.
But if I'm using like a standard, you know, one of these or like an auto spinner, yeah, like I'm throwing it in my heat gun, and I have like a digital temperature
get the
control.
back out, huh? So
Pardon me?
In the first vaporizers for flower was a Stenil like heat gun.
That's
hooked into this weird piece that would go over top of your flask. For real. That was how we used to vaporize back then.
Can you show them? Can you show them are you able to show them how you're heating it up? Because I don't think many people see that setup.
Oh, sorry, my cords are just everywhere. So it's all snowing up here. Oops, where am I? I'm over here. So digital heat gun. Put you down.
Blow the screen up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Boom. So got the banger.
Yeah, you're
I got
putting
my little
your banger
stuff. So I put the banger right in there. I have this little, it's not that hot, so I can pull this thing out. But it's just this little top that the banger sits right in. Bam. Digital display, so I can actually dial in my temperature, and that's kind of how I've moved to have a softer heat. And I'm heating into my heating range. You know what I mean? I'm heating into my dab zone versus falling through it. So for me, it's just kind of been, and I've been on it for 4 years. So it's just kind of been like the way I've developed, and I don't really know many other people doing it. Flav is one that I saw breaking out the heat gun at one point as well. Flav 421. So shout out to him. He's a quadruple OG in the game. Like that guy.
Flav's a good guy.
Just awesome guy. Super wealth of knowledge. Incredible glass collection. Like, whew.
Yeah, he's got a great glass collection. Good guy, man. We spent some time in Amsterdam, and we've had some good times. Been talking to him a bunch lately.
Solid guy.
Yeah.
All right, I want to ask. I'm going to ask both of you. 3 most impressive extracts you've come across in the last year. The group or individual who made them, and if you know the farmer who cultivated them. So it's shout out time. So we can take a minute.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I can
Go for it.
Go.
Okay, so for me, it's I have to group like a bunch of GMO related strains, like slap and tickle, modified grapes, and just a bunch of straight GMO. Pressed by Hastronomer, grown by Foreman Farms, Living Soil Organics, so all
Nice.
super fire. Then some stuff that I like made in an R&D, couple R&D batches. That like
what was it?
I'm not gonna really talk about it.
Okay, all right.
But like some R&D stuff that I made that like, so yeah, it turned out incredible, and we're starting to do that in slightly larger batches now. So super stoked with that. When we start dropping that, then I'll start talking about it. But until then, I just gotta stay mum. But R&D batches on some BHO that I've made to combat some of that super fire live rosin, and some melt I got blessed with as well. Some apple, what am I talking about? Apple toffee melt. Yeah, that melt was insane. But yeah, what about you, Colin?
So got a big shout out to Brian at Best Friend Farms up in Maine. He's got this bubble creme that looks insane. That was a big, big ups, Brian. That's awesome. And Brian's flour is also incredible for those up in Maine. Trying to think of who else. Out in California, I'd say, Papa Select and the fully melted, Wook sauce. I think his stuff is great.
Yeah.
Him and Alice
Shout out Wook
some
sauce.
awesome stuff going on. Yeah.
That's very
And
cool.
also App and Glow Farms up in NorCal and Nasha Extracts. I think those guys have some great stuff going on. And and then Heritage as well. I see those guys all the time.
Yeah. Shout out Heritage Mendocino. Those guys are dope. Those guys are killing it.
They have some great stuff.
And she was just on Hashish In. Shout out
cool.
Hashish In. Yeah.
Nice.
I think I might be misspeaking, but I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong.
They have great stuff. And Canna Ferry as well. I think she's got some good stuff as well. So she's out in Cali.
I also got to shout out this guy.
Oh yeah, big shout out Canada Dabs. Some of the best
Canada
dabs
Dabs,
in Canada for sure.
Fruit Joy. Ugh. I'm still nursing a little bit just because I don't want to take that last dab because it's so good.
I want to kind of wrap up extraction with a kind of future outlooking question. I know we kind of touched on it in a bit of on our call yesterday of your experience in the kitchen and how you like to draw comparisons, and I think it was really quite eloquent. So, I'd love to hear your take on a very macro view of the future of extraction from where we go from here. Colin, and then RJ.
I think it's more refinement and less, more refinement from all parts of the picture here, meaning cultivation. It should no longer be take our crappy material and make it into something that we can sell. I think that's a weird ideology that was carried into the regulated market that doesn't make any sense.
100%.
If you're going to have something be created, it should be intentional, and you should be growing for that. I think that needs to happen, and I see that happening more. I hear people talking about, I'm breeding for solventless. Okay, cool. Let's see over time what these varietals can do, and it's exciting that people have this, the dialogue now that they're thinking like this, because it's really difficult to expect to go buy material from someone that has never even thought about what you're even doing with it, So that's one thing I think is going to be imperative and something that will change more, and more people are starting to come to, to do more of that. And then beyond that, I think that, there's going to be long-term people that will be here, and then the rest won't. And I think that, I'm curious to see how a lot of us that have been here can hold on to what we've been doing and proliferate it and come together and work together so we can all be here. Because it's a changing landscape. That's not easy. And I feel for everyone out there, because it's not, it's just not easy.
Word.
Agreed completely. Yeah, and I agree with the more refinement thing too. Like, I think that's going to be the future, is just finding more ways to break things down and then reconstruct the way that we envision it. And I think it's going to be, I hate the term extract artistry now, because I feel like it just doesn't talk about the science of extraction. But I think when it comes down to formulations, and I think the future is formulations. So just kind of to expand on what you're saying, just in the reconstructing the way that we would want to dab it. You know what I mean? That's where the refined palate and the sommelier understanding of cannabis and dabbing and being ingrained in the culture and understanding what the product needs to be, both from the production manufacturing perspective, but also from the consumption perspective, and understanding, everything in between. Like, it really makes it changes the way that something's produced with intent, like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And for people like us, it just, it's I think that's how we hold on to our longevity in this industry, is because we understand it a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's something we talked about yesterday, was making products with intention rather than making products because we can. And I think that's important for people to look at. Look inward a bit and try to challenge what the thing you're doing is right now, and how can you improve upon it, not only internally but externally, to make it better. Is it exploring other methods? I don't know, but bridging the gap between disciplines, I think, is really important for the next steps of all this.
Yeah, so I like talking about that yesterday. Bridging the disciplines is something very cool. It's a great thought, and I agree that that's kind of where we're going in the future. It's providing a robust, not only cannabinoid profile, but terpene profile. And yeah, maybe it's introducing things that don't otherwise come natively in the plant. And I know that is a little bit of a taboo, but at the same time, like, it's not going to be, it is but a segment of the market, right? That's what it will be. But I think, especially when we look at it medicinally, and we're creating a product to help for certain things or be ingested for certain ways, and I know that can be extrapolated into the rec market and those kind of products as well. But we want to create something that can hit all the boxes, and certain cultivars, may not be able to do that, as well as a kind of selective mix of different things put together to specifically target an effect. And I know that we're still too early with the testing and the kind of regulations to go deep down that, but just kind of curious your thoughts on that as well, Colin.
Yeah, so my thoughts on that are I think today you can use the plant and its parent parts to make these really incredible SKUs, but I don't think isolating these individual cannabinoids together and then bringing them together in that macro and micro of a way, we're there yet. Perhaps there's teams that I don't know about that have supercomputers that are, have pipettes and can do all of this, this, we're talking about. But what I do know is that I think utilizing certain varietals and certain extraction types to create more intentional products is definitely something that is, I think it's something that we need more of. And I think we need people to break down barriers and to start understanding all these things together, because to me, it's like music, like jazz and hip hop never really played together before, and then they did, and beautiful things happened, right? And it's very much like that, where disciplines can really play off one another, and they can create something more profound than anyone could do on their own. And that's the spirit of it, I guess, at the end of the day. And so yeah, at the end of the day, yes, I think that's a cool ideology and a good dialogue to have. Do I think we're there right now? We're really far from it, because I mean, we need better testing. We need better understanding of what chemicals actually we need to be testing for, because I think that's another whole other aspect of it as well. So there's just more here, and with us condensing and bringing things together in these ways, now there's a new new questions arise, right? Like, let's just face it, like that's really at the end of the day what's happening is new questions are coming up. We don't have answers for them. It's the same thing that I've gone through with it seems like the whole journey here is like, just these are questions that arose, and I tried to find answers for them and went deep on trying to find them and continue to, so it's I really hope that a lot of the individuals around us that are interested in the science aspect of it, that maybe haven't spent their life with the plant, could interject some knowledge in terms of how we could be testing for these things, and bringing that knowledge to the table. Because it's, again, like I said, it takes a village, it takes a dream team to make these ideas possible, and nothing ever happens, it seems, without a great team. So I think it starts Absolutely. With the right people and the right minds. So
yeah, team is everything for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
No doubt.
Awesome. Quick dabs for everybody if they want. Round of dabs. Grab some water, because we're about to talk cultivation. One of my favorite subjects. I can talk a little bit about my last dab.
Okay, I gotta ask Colin too. I gotta just one-on-one and fire in there.
No problem.
So when are we gonna talk about music too? I want to talk a little bit about music.
We're talking about music after cultivation.
Okay. Well, then maybe I'll save my question for that.
All right, save your question for the music section. This is some cherry cookie breath from Relentless Genetics that I grew out in a pheno hunt in ACMPR a year ago. I mixed too many washes, so it's a tad bit colored up, but it tastes delicious. This is full-term organic sun-grown, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, or still enjoy it. It tastes like you're eating a cherry lip balm. So like, there's a bit of like, I'm eating like a lip balm taste to it, but then there's the cherry in it. So yeah, what are you smoking on, Colin?
So this is actually some lemon tea.
This looks very nice. Oh, nice.
Zoom in on that. Super. You see how like, and this is refined oil. So this is This is more of like a.
Can you zoom in on him, London?
I don't know if you guys can see that.
Or blow his screen up. Maybe not. That's okay.
Anyway.
There you go.
So it's really.
Oh wow, it's very clear, man. Can you hold it closer to the camera? Very clear. Oh wow.
So can you explain a little bit more about the refined, if you don't?
Yo, that's cool.
So when I talk about refinements, I talk about filtration and steps of filtration over said time. So we look at it in terms of like micron size, and refinement has steps to it in terms of the micron size that you use. So this has many steps in the process of different types of micron sizes that will help refine out some of the impurities. Like we have an impurity step that we have that we remove some of the fats and lipids. And and then it just starts to get really, really, really opaque and super, super sappy. It's just like a sap.
That's like my favorite thing ever. Because like that's something that we've talked about a little bit before is, or at least like Jameson and I, is about like
it's just like really
how the majority of the solventless products out there are not, refined. They are like they're crude versions, and it's really beautiful to see your take on things and how you kind of go extra steps to produce some killer products.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's we spread everything out to different SKUs or products, and they all have their place, and different batches can be different consistencies, and that's how we look at it. So it's we really try to focus on pushing ourselves to have different tiers and different refinement points, so we can offer something different for everyone.
What were you showing off there, RJ? We didn't catch that. You're showing it. I didn't get to know what it is.
Slap tickle. Yeah.
Okay, check. Yep.
Yeah, some slap and tickle. It's grape pie and GMO.
How does that come through? Like heavy on the GMO, or does it go like the other direction?
Ooh.
GMO usually takes over everything.
Ooh.
So Jameson, one thing, some of the favorite cultivars that I've ran recently are some of the stuff from the GMO Wilson, Straw Nano Wilson, and all of the Thug Pug work is pretty much all keepers. That guy's.
I've read some pretty impressive.
Romer, you've done it, my friend.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to go. I have cultivation questions. So, I know you talked about 89 starting working on the lemon cake, and you kind of like touched on that a little bit before. I wanted to know like how that breeding project came about. Like, what was the initial desire push for that cross? Like, was it an accident? Was it intentional? And like, what was missing that you didn't have that you wanted that pushed you to do this?
So I had been reading, like, I honestly being influenced by others around me that were making other seed stock just to like save stuff. It was more of like preservation than really anything. It wasn't meant to be, hey, I'm like gonna take this and it's gonna do that, and I have this foresight and it's gonna be this awesome thing, right? I didn't have, that was not the ideology at the time, right? The idea was to save it because we didn't know what else to do, right?
Yeah.
And we had read about, and I just also want to say this, my best friend's mom, Mary P, if Luke is listening right now, she allowed us to grow plants in her house in a way that at a young age we wouldn't have been able to do any of this. So we had, a setup. She was a horticulturist herself. She worked in greenhouses, and she had a different eye for what it was, and as long as you guys weren't buying the stuff, right? So it was really at that time she was really, so anyway, we had all these plants that we started. And again, like I said, we selected from these males because we were influenced by other people that were like, hey, you got to save this stuff. This is how you do it. Again, we grew up in an agricultural area, so plants and pollinating things that concept was there. Understanding what the intention behind that was not there at that age, right?
Yeah.
So we collected this pollen. I saved it. We were told to put it in a refrigerator. We grew the plant again outside the existing lemon cake, and we hid it outside with the pollen, right? And then it grew the seeds from there. And again, we harvested all those seeds. I'll never forget it. Like, just like falling all over the place. And, we had this huge table full of stuff. And then we started again going through these seeds, and we selected, again, down from like 10 to 5 to 1. And that's the one I've kept ever since. And I've never let it go, and I've had it forever. There's
what is it that makes you keep it, have it forever? Like, is it sentimentality? Describe the profile. Like, how does she grow?
It's funny you say that. I have a friend who runs it, and he was like, the garlic's so much better than it. But I'm like, but dude, it's a totally different. It's like telling me Jack Herrera is better than the sour diesel or whatever. Just like they're totally different ones. I don't know how you compare that to one another, but my point is that everyone has an ideology of what's great, right? And to me, it's partly sentimental, but partly I've never smelled any variety that smells like this before. It's like got this like lemon pound cake with icing kind of taste to it, and that early on, I'd never had something as tasty as this. Like, it is just mouth-watering. It's high in terpenes. It produces it's just the resin's really tacky. It's not really greasy. It's really good for extraction. It's above 4 or 5%, depending on how we run it. It's like 4%, 5% typical in today's standards as we measure things. So it really checked all the boxes in terms of, later I found about the percentage, but the thing that I really liked was just super tasty, and I could roll it up. I could put it into a pipe. I could stuff it into a bowl, and, and it just was super beautiful. It had great bag appeal. I mean, it just checked every single box that you could want it to check. And then, I'm a creature of habit. A lot of the things that I was doing then, I was just trying to keep quiet and do my thing. So it was just something I kept, and I didn't really share it with anybody but a couple buddies that were really close to me. And
very cool. So building on that, like, we move into the square wave, like, what was sort of same linear train of thought, like what was the intention there? Like, now you've got something and you want to make something new, and sort of what were your motivations there to take on that project?
So I wanted to make something that was even further in the direction of extraction, but kind of capture this old school Afghani terp profile, and that was more interesting. Like, that was intentional. But it's funny. It ended up having. It's funny. Like, my cousin and I remember when we first selected it. It had this like Afghani cherry, not like cherry, but like sweetness to it. And over time, it's kind of changed. Like, even like, I think last year or year before, we were talking about this, where it was definitely more Afghani now. And I don't think we can
more
explain
earth,
why.
like,
more earthy,
more earth, less cherry.
Maybe even more diesely, if that's a thing to even call it. Even though it's not even related to it, if you look at it on Canopedia, it's just not related to any of that stuff. But so it was really trying to get, I get really into trying to find specific specific profiles. I just really, when I get my mind gets set on it, I start searching pretty hard, and I won't stop. So, you know, I went back into some of the older seeds and popped a bunch of stuff. And of course, you know, like really 70% of it wouldn't even pop. So what did pop, I ended up growing more of it, and then selecting them. I only got 2 males from it, selecting those 2 males and then making more seeds from that. But then keeping those males around, we then embarked on the Square Wave project, which is the second to last project that I did in New York before I left New York. And that was just inspired by a heavy hitting varietal that hashed really well, that tastes really old school, and embodied some of the stuff that like Shanti Baba and Mr. Nice were doing, and trying to search through older stock that we really didn't actually know much about, and sticking to these specific boxes of seeds that we've had or really pelicans of seeds that we've had for a super long time, because we catalog things by years that we get them, and then we catalog them again by breeder, and then, or back then, handle, you know what I mean, because it was really more like that.
Who was the male? The Afghani?
So we had searched through a bunch of older seeds that we had been gifted, and we selected towards an Afghani looking varietal. Now, did we know it was Afghani? We don't, you know, a lot of these things were, you know, on the forum days, like we were just trading lots of different things, and, you know, Vic would give me stuff, or different segment, you know, Scoosh would send me, you know, stuff, you know, it's just, we would get things in that way. Sort of like, you know, if I remember correctly, that's how Subcool selected the original Jack's Cleaner, was through seeds that Scoosh gave him. If I'm remembering that correctly, I remember that being like either some Colombians, I can't quite remember, but it was something like that. But my point is that we didn't really understand, as much as I'd like to be like, yes, it was this variety and this is the name of it. You know, they were labeled Afghan 1 times Afghani, and that's what we grew. And some of them were like super fat, some of them were pretty fat, but, you know, they were definitely an Afghan.
So what were the original F1 characteristics of Square Wave, and how far have you taken it subsequently?
So the original characteristics of it was more of a hybrid. So it leaned towards more of a longer sativa looking plant with a hybrid indica structure, with lots of like thick branching and lots of flowering sites.
Lots of bud sites.
Yeah, but it was a really high calyx to leaf ratio. So those are the traits that I look for when I'm selecting for for hashing. So
absolutely,
those are that's how we selected towards it. So we tried to select a male that was similar, and as similar as we could find, and then we paired those together. And we ended up putting 2 males together for Square Wave. And then we selected from that. Same practice. Only 200 seeds were gone through. I still have other seeds to go through. So there could be a time when we could revisit some of this stuff.
Very cool.
It's, you know, we have some great selections now, but you never know. I mean, you know, Skunkman Sam would always say, unless you're doing it in populations of 2,000 or more, it's not a hunt.
It doesn't matter.
So, yeah. But hey, now we can do those types of things. So I look forward to kind of exploring that.
Very cool. I wanted to touch on the New York City garlic that you did. And I think that is worth, you know, touched on a little bit, and talking about the lineage and that cross too.
Yep. So the New York City garlic was a Shiva skunk clone that we had selected that was extremely skunky and really just really nasty. It was like just really roadkilly, but it wasn't. I think it lacked some resin production, and we ended up going back into the NL5, the Skunk One NL5 tie, and timesing that to an OGKB, and found a male from that when we did that. And then we selected towards the OGKB, and we hit that back to that mom, that Shiva that we had, and we created that garlic, and that was it's paying homage to where it was made.
And how long did that take? That whole process? That's a lot of work.
3 years to make that.
Yeah. And so is it like straight garlic? Is it?
Too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Is it like? What are some of the characters? Like, is it just a pure? Is it a diesel? Like, how do you describe it when you describe it to people?
It's a very super skunky, garlicky. It's like a garlic knot. It's like as garlic as it gets, and it's very. It reminds me of like an old super skunk, or has that skunky cat piss on it too a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, when you open a jar, you're like, ooh, it's weird. You know, it's got it's nice. It's a great yielder. Flowering wise, it's middle of the road yield wise, but resin wise, it's a great yielder when you run it. But
how long do you have to take it?
That's actually only 10 weeks, man. I mean, I have a friend who likes to run it until 9, but I'm not. That's not me.
Yeah, I know guys, like I talked to a few growers, and I know guys who do run GMO 9 weeks, and I know guys who won't take it till 12 or 13. So it's to each their own, man. It's
GMO though, I think, is a true 12-week varietal. It's like sour diesel to me. If you don't run it to its full capacity, it's not the same. It's not the same flower.
I would tend to agree with you. I think that there's a funk that comes on in the 9th week that, if you're talented enough, I think you can capture jar and then move. But I think as it matures, I find it gets more floral as it matures. But then once you jar it, you like extract it, jar it, cure it, that funk comes back to it that you're really looking for. So I love talking about GMO. I love smoking GMO. I love everybody that grows GMO. I wanted to ask new breeding projects, like new stuff on the horizon. I know, you're super busy, and we'll kind of I want to touch on that later, but right now, are you looking to create any new crosses?
Yeah. So, yes, we've got a bunch of new things in the works. We're actually, in the middle of setting up a new space now dedicated to some long-term breeding projects. So yeah, I've been doing that, and I've also been working with medicinal genomics on some hop-laden viroid stuff. Research. Trying to better understand just all the different amazing things that are at our fingertips in terms of how destructive this thing could be. And just trying to help, I think, collectively find a good path forward to share some information for everyone to take, and utilize, because
100%.
I've said this before, we all want to share great crosses and great cuts, but if we're all passing sick plants to one another, eventually there's nothing's going to be left of it,
100%, man. It's something that's got to be taken seriously and addressed. And I think, the community is obsessive enough that, the right people are hearing, guys like yourself, yelling from the top of rooftops. And I think people are starting to take notice. And if you don't, then, maybe you're not paying close enough attention, because it's not like guys aren't putting out that work. So, I couldn't agree with that more. Is it so as far as breeding projects go, taking square wave and lemon cake and working them into, what people would call hype varietals these days, or are you breeding away from that? And, so we're starting to see, stuff like Cuban Black Haze come up, and a lot of people working with different equatorial varietals. Is that a direction that you're going in? Like, what can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I always search, and like I always, we have a chamber that just focuses on just rare things that we obtain, whether it be from land race exchange or things that we have had in the collection. We're always kind of looking for things. It's a long process to start exploring a lot of these these older varietals to really select and want to bring them forward into a project. I mean, we're just looking at it from such a different lens right now. Like there's all this testing that we want to do, and we want to sequence the genome and understand, okay, so what's here? Well, how is it similar to other plants in the stable, and how is that relationship important to a breeding project? From a not only a touch, feel, smell point of view, like we've always done, but also what's beyond that and what's deeper, what's under the surface here. So we can be intentional, again, like I explained before, but when we were younger, this was just a touch, feel, smell, great intuition, maybe bad intuition too at times. And, we're just trying to have a better sense of learning. And I think in this day and age of learning, the tools that we have are just tenfold, in terms of how we can look at these plants and these, ultimately these chemotypes and phenotypes. So that's how we're looking at it in terms of present days. Yes, we're working and looking at different and abnormal things, but we also are very intentional and detailed in terms of the data that we're collecting, because I ultimately want to make varietals that I can say, hey, they produce this much resin, and have an individual go and grow that varietal and bring it into their hash lab and it produce that much resin. By volume. And we're a long ways away from that, but we're working towards it.
So leading right from that, what's like a minimum yield that you look for in a commercially viable hash cultivar? And
over 3.6 to 7%.
And then in your experience, other than examining the glands late in flower, are there any other indicators in earlier stages of growth that you have found that would indicate that plant's going to do well with mechanical extraction?
I mean, today it's so difficult. I mean, I'm just gonna say that it's, you could look at, a tried and true hasher like a Sunday driver and cross it to a California orange, and it just be a totally different world, and it's hard to know. It's hard to know, and I think you have to actually go through the motions and put the work in, I think, and that's the best way to really truly know. And then ultimately it's looking at your feeding schedule. What are you feeding it? What enzymes are there? How is that being uptaked into the regimen? And I think there's a way to target things if you're looking at it from the right lens, and that'll help give you a better chance. But ultimately your room temperature, your root zone temperature, your what you're feeding it and when, all of those things really contribute. Also your light spectrum really contributes to all this as well. So I just say, like, you have to look at it from all of these angles together 100%. And make sure that they're all in harmony. Like your VPD can't be off if you're feeding a great regimen and all these great sugars and there's all this uptake happening. It doesn't matter because you're damaging the plant in different ways. So you really have to pay attention to your to all these counterparts.
100%. So as a guy who's been doing this for a really long time, what is your thoughts on plant breeders' rights, and what advice do you give to guys who, maybe haven't come out in the open yet, who are working on, their own genetics and have the potential aspirations of securing breeders' rights or profiting in some way off of it, what advice do you have for those guys?
Well, I mean, look, if you're interested in breeding, I suggest you really study the art and the science behind selection and breeding, and really get into not only cannabis breeding, but understand other forms of breeding from different types of plants, and it'll help inform you and help you understand the intricacies that's needed to actually make a successful breeding project happen. Yeah, you can collect pollen and throw it together like I did when I was a young guy, select really great offspring that way. But to go and make a company on that seems and feels misaligned and misunderstood as to, what the craft actually is. But what I would say is don't lose sight of having fun with it, and don't let someone tell you can't breed, number one. And number two, if you're going to breed, test your work, try it, grow a bunch of it out yourself, and or give it to friends to do that under the pretense that this is untested gear, and see what happens. To me, it's like having an open canvas.
That's very good. Do you feel, as far as individuals who want to try to be remunerated from their work in genetics, do you feel that it's too late and you can't really once you've sold the seeds, or once you've given out the cuts, you can't put the cat back into the bag, so to speak, where we eventually lead into a system similar to dog breeding, where there's pedigree and there's transactional proof and payment of, I'm using this person's male and my female to make this, and do you think that we're leading to that, or do you think that there's been just so much interest and so much activity since pretty much the dawn of man in moving cannabis seeds around that it's something that's probably not going to be able to be controlled or contained in that way?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's really hard to say that you own a varietal. I mean, where did this varietal come from? A bag seed that you 100%. Bought from a friend? I mean, and then where'd that come from? You have a story for that too? I just think that the stories get a little odd, and it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. And what I would say is, if you've been successful off of a varietal that's made you successful, there's no reason you can't make a new one. To me, it's like 100%. Music. You've released 100%. The song. It's time to write some new music, and progression is the thing you need to focus on. And you can talk about how you used to throw a football over the moon, but that's not where you're at today.
100%.
It's my Uncle Rico reference.
I love it.
So you know what I mean? So my point is like, focus on new things and progressing yourself and furthering yourself, and use it as a portfolio piece rather than the only thing that you were known for at one time.
For sure. For sure.
And I think that's the thing to look at is maybe look more internally, and someone's going to take your stuff and make something new with it. Same
100%.
Something different.
What were the three most impressive cultivars, either in your garden or on your table, that you saw this year that really impressed you? And if you know the cultivator, feel free to shout them out.
I'm going to shout out this guy up in Maine that I've never met before, and my friend Mitch from Indico, big shout out to them, in Maine, had introduced me to this guy, Brave Boat Gardens. His grapefruit gelato that he has is...
Sorry, what was the strain?
Grapefruit gelato. That's what he's calling
grapefruit
it.
Grapefruit gelato.
I'm not quite sure the genetics behind this, but yeah, man. I mean, this is solid, really good stuff. And also, again, my friend Brian, Best Friend Farms, he gave me this extremely amazing flower and that just tastes super sour and really, really true to form. It's just really great. So yeah, if
One
you guys
more.
are up in
One
Maine,
more.
go check out, Best Friend Farms. His flour is
Best
awesome.
Friend Farms. That's dope. One more honorable mention.
Who else? Who's the other flour that I've gotten? I don't see too much flour.
It's all right.
This. All right, so here's another Brave Boat. His Stroop waffle.
Oh, double shout out for Brave Boat. This guy
Double
must be good.
shout out. It's the only flour I have. You're forcing me a hand, man. It's the only.
Okay, so I gotta ask.
I got.
Do you smoke? Do you still smoke flour? Do you smoke much flour?
I really don't. I don't smoke very much flour.
I didn't ask RJ because I know the answer to this question. So he's
no. I unfortunately do not smoke much flour. When I do smoke flour, it's because someone has influenced me in a way that they want me to try it for a very specific reason. And
100%.
I will pull out this pipe, which is the only flour pipe that I have, which is my, this is.
That's
this
very
is
cool.
Bob Snodgrass.
Oh, very cool.
Very cool. It's the Bob Snodgrass pipe that I've had since I was a young guy. And yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you just say, man, young kids never lived until you've been walking a lot with a sweatshirt on that has tie-dye ball stains on it, and with your finger up in your hair.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. So I want to kind of, I think that leads kind of into the music, and I think you've got your recording artist name is Calmer, and I wanted to first ask you about that. Like, is that a Palmer? Like, how did that name come about? Was that given to you? Did you take it?
Yeah, that was given to me, and it just like stuck. And my friends started calling me that. My buddy Michael DJ Emerge, who is a DMC DJ, he used to call me Calmer, and then my best friend Travis, who goes by Machine Drum as well, and they have a bunch of projects that they were doing, so it just kind of stuck. And I just started releasing music under that and playing shows in New York, in Brooklyn, and warehouse parties there in Brooklyn.
When did that start?
Early 2000s. So I'd go into the city and play shows, and I got pulled into this whole scene there, and I ended up just getting really ingrained with this whole New York art warehouse / art scene, music scene, I guess. And just things snowballed. So that's where I met a lot of individuals that kind of I still am best friends today with, and just kind of snowballed from there, if you will. And I started, cool. And then I played with ended up playing with this band called New Villager, which is more of like an art / music project, and we would do installations at places like the Andy Warhol Museum, and set up sound installations and sculptures, and play music within that, and do these immersive shows. And we toured on that for for a little while. We went to Europe and did a bunch of stuff, and and then I also did sound design for a long time, and that's how I was able to do cannabis and all of these things, is because there's just there's no 9 to 5,
So like that kind of leads into a question I wanted to ask, is like, how has you being a musician and your understanding of music made you a better hash maker, or vice versa?
Yeah, no, it plays off of one another. It to me, it's what, like I've said before, as art is immediate. It gives you this immediate response, right? And making music is exactly like growing plants. You can feel the response, it's like boom right there. I just watered my plant. You come back like 5 minutes later and you see them praying. You're like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, seriously, it's this primitive yet expansive feeling that is very similar. And these, look, I never planned for an industry. And I just have to say this, like, I was desperately trying to just make music and to just do sound design and to just do that and grow and extract and have my cold room and do the things that I did. And that was like all it was going to be, and that's all there was to do, and then all of a sudden things started changing in the 2000s, the late 2000s. It was like, whoa, there's some structure happening of all this, right? So it's really fascinating to me today that we have this some sort of this bubbling to the surface of an industry. And I'm really thankful that I get to merge all these things together, like photography and video and design. And these are all things that I did because I spent so many hours doing it. And then it's how I paid my bills, making album covers and doing all of those things. That was just part of my everyday. And then I'd go take care of our plants and go to the spot, and it's just how it went. So to me it's really amazing that this all kind of happened. And I'm still that guy on the forums that's like posting and trying to educate and trying to share information, because I truly think that no one's the best. No one is the best. We are all learning. I am trying to learn as much as I can to iterate, to make new things, just as I was when I was 16. There's nothing different, except I'm older and I have the way I look at things is different now. But the spirit has always kind of been the same. And I kind of like staying in that world of discovery. I mean, it pushes me to push myself and the things I create further. And I fail a lot, man. Like, I make a bunch of junk all the time because I made it too hot, or I made it too low, it happens. Like, it's part of the journey. Or it's too terpy. I don't even like it. Seriously. It happens all the time to me. I'm like, this is too terpy. You know what I mean? So these are things that I'm telling everyone this because I think it's important to know that it's okay to fail. And I think that's part of the journey. Because ultimately you won't one day, and you're going to start making great things and it won't stop.
100%. Absolutely. So do you have any upcoming projects with your music? Like, are you working towards, or is cannabis kind of taking a front seat?
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to strike that balance between the two? Do you get pulled one way or another dependent on projects, or is like part of your sanity that balance? Like, how do you work that in your life? Like, what does that look like?
It's my balance. It's my throttle and my reality check for me. Excuse me. It's really easy to get carried away in your work and the things that you're doing, and making music and making sounds that inspire even little grooves that I'll make that are like 12 bars or 18 bars. I'll do these little ideas. I have these folders with ideas, and then I'll make them bigger ideas. And for me right now, it's about cannabis right now. It's about research. It's about developing and furthering the things that I've had questions and want answers to right now. Music is my balance to that, but it's not the front seat. Is it there do I have tons of music to release? Yeah, a lot. Will it come out? Absolutely. But I want to merge the worlds together at the right time. And it's why I don't talk about music as much, other than in relation to cannabinoids. And I don't try to say like, oh, check out my new thing. I'm going to, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's I feel it's distasteful, or I just feel like at the right time, I'll start to do that. And I don't know when, but yeah, there's a lot of music that's going to be coming out. I know there's people listening that have I know there's some specific people that want me to release music, and I will. It's just, I have to get through the next, few months first, and then we'll when I'm not, when I have more time. But
Absolutely.
but yeah, definitely I'm going to be putting it out, and I'll be putting things together. Vessel Life Science is really evolving right now, and we're excited for the future of that project, and where that's going to ultimately end up. So.
Let's expand on that. Like, let's first of all, for the people that don't know, let's talk about what Vessel Life Science is, and sort of introduce them to that, and then talk about the projects you got going on, because I know you're a really, really busy guy.
Yeah. So right now we're working on projects in several different states, and we're focusing on California right now, and getting this project off the ground. And we're New York State is a really big focus for us. I just want to preference that it's the focus right now, and we have a really great team together that we're focusing in on that and getting that done. So it's I can't wait for that to happen. Maine is a really important.
Who is Vessel Life Science? Like, is it just you? Is it
so
you and one
Vessel
other?
Life Science is myself, and I just recently brought on my cousin Zach. So he is now going to be working with me on several different projects, and he's also we also have another company called Foundation. And Foundation is a larger subset of individuals that is it's we'll talk about that at the right time, but
Dope.
yeah.
So let's walk it back a little bit. Like, let's go. Like, first of all, like New York. Why is New York a priority? Like, there's clearly history there? Like, talk a little bit about that and your aspirations moving forward.
So New York's really that's, we know New York really well. It's, I've been growing hemp there. We've been involved in the state for quite some time. I've lived there for a long time, and I want to see the program go off in the right way, and I want to contribute to the Small Farmers Network and create good dialogue for everyone to be able to have a really healthy economy there, and to make sure that everyone does their part and tries to make it something special, because it's going to be really hard. It's going to be a really hard state. It's New York. It's a tough state. But I think that there's a lot of good that can come from this. And I know there's a lot of people that need good medicine. So I think if we can contribute, and there's a lot of talent in that state as well. There's a lot of talent in the Northeast. I'll just say that. And I think a lot of people either want to come back home, like myself, or they want to contribute, who are there currently, and help build a healthy market. And I think that's what we need. We need people that care about the state and care about the program, care about the plant, and care about how that's going to happen. From not even a communal standpoint, but a long-term strategic standpoint, because it's going to be hard to onboard that state. So 100%.
And so what do you have going on in Cali?
So California, we're setting up a lab right now in California, and we can talk more about that.
That's okay. Absolutely.
and then at a deeper time, or a different time, and at a deeper level. Yeah. But yeah, we're setting up out there to do some really great formulation, and we're getting everything set up. We're at those stages right now. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And then the first spot you had mentioned was Maine.
Yes. So we're working on all these things simultaneously, and because they all have different timelines. So
how's the cannabis scene out there?
It's amazing. I mean, it's kind of the Northeast. It's like the NorCal of the Northeast. There's a lot of great growers, a lot of good extractors, a lot of good people up there. Been doing things for a long time, and maybe aren't out of the woodworks quite yet fully, but are super talented and really, really here for the plant. So it's cool. It's a good scene.
Very cool. Very cool. Well,
and they accept out-of-state med cards. So
Oh, very cool.
So it's unique in that manner. So if you're on vacation or if you're up there just seeing a show, you can go to any of these dispensaries if you have even that card. So it's kind of cool.
Very cool.
So, do you have a like? Is Vessel ever going to be on store shelves? Like, is that a desire?
It's not really been a desire, but it seems like it's about to happen.
Very cool.
You know, so it's not really been a goal. You know, it's funny. You know, I get this. I've been asked this a bit lately. You know, I'm not sure. I think, you know, brands right now. You know, let's take PAX. I think PAX is a really large. They're a brand. I'm building, right, and you know, I think it's important to recognize those things. And you know, it's so early, so I don't want to say that it's going to be this or that yet. Right now, it is absolutely our incubation house and our innovation right now with Foundation. And you know, we intend to deploy our tech and our, you know, our knowledge into the industry, this, you know, in several different ways, whether it's partnerships and or our own lab. So that's kind of what I will say is we want to collaborate with everyone and do and recognize that, you know, we are only so big and we can only do so much.
That I think that's key. I think that's, you know, a part of what's the issue up here that we're having. So I think that's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say this: like, in no other industry does everybody do everything. You know,
yeah.
you're not a cultivator, extractor, businessman, retailer. I mean, it's so. You know, so I'm personally trying to focus in on what we actually do really well, and
100%.
stay in those lanes to really accelerate, and help others help us. So what we do, you know, that helps, they do that helps. It's successful on both ends, and then everyone's like, you know, there for it, you know. So
yeah, very cool. All right, well, I got only my final questions left. So my last question is, like, what is your one or two best failures, like biggest and best takeaways? What happened? Was it, you know, running a big wash, or was it, you know, a business, whatever it was? Like, you know, I think that a lot of these interviews and a lot of these times we come on here and we talk about all of our successes, and we talk about, you know, and on our Instagram we post about all our successes, which I think is fine. But I think that a lot of people trying, you know, on the come up don't understand the amount of failures. And I know you alluded a lot to it during, you know, this talk, but I want to know, from a guy like you who's seen so much and done so much and been in this so long, you know, what are some of the biggest, you know, lessons, that takeaways that you've had that you would want guys on the come up to hear?
First, don't be afraid to fail. Like, it's everyone like trying to be perfect. Make as many different types of hash, go through air drying all the way to freeze drying. I think it's important to understand. It's drying. You're doing one faster than the other, but that's super important. I think the other thing is truly, you know, try not to get inside of what other people are doing and worry too much about that. Worry about the things that you have in front of you that's tangible, one step at a time, not the whole staircase. You know, so that's what I would say. And you know, there's so much time. It's so early, so don't feel like you have to rush towards anything. Even when you do, if that feeling's great, but rush towards the knowledge. Learn. Don't worry about the rest. And then my biggest failures. Wow. So, man, I've done it. I've done quite the number. I've flooded my I flooded my reservoir tank in the city once, and it poured down on a studio below me. With this guy's like was a pretty well known artist, and it ruined it ruined a lot of things there. And it was like a we had four trash cans that we used to have on reservoir pump, and I would hand fill them, right, because this is early days. And I remember leaving the hose on, and this is before RO water, so like we never, this is back then. And I left it on, and I went to use the bathroom, and I got caught talking to somebody, and I came back in, and it was just like, I don't even know how many minutes, maybe 35 minutes. I don't know, just complete, at those times you couldn't make mistakes like that. So I'm really lucky that it was my toilet, or my sink, I'm sorry, and the hand sink that I had was the culprit of it. So check your reservoirs, have cut off points or cut off valves, and don't make that mistake. What else? I've fried my whole room before. That's real. I went away, and of course you tell your buddy, hey, come every couple days, just take care of the thing. He came once, and I came back, and everything was like completely just like decrepit and fried. So know that even at your best, you can be your worst. You can leave everything perfect, and in 4 days, everything could be 72 hours, really. Let's just call it. And then finally, I remember taking in a at least this is what it was given to me as, back then. Who really knows? It was a great cut, but it was a Skunk 6 clone. It was Skunk number 6, labeled number 6. And I was skateboarding. I like to skateboard. So I was skating down at FDR skate park, and I met this cat that I've been skating with a bunch, and he gave me these clones. And I remember bringing him back, and I didn't even think about it. I just like took him out, put him in the spot, and went upstairs and made food. And I came down like maybe 3 hours later. I started looking at them, and I'm just like, I actually saw webs on them, and I'd already put them next to my other stuff, right? Because I wasn't thinking about it. And I totally engulfed this whole place with these things, and it was completely my fault because I did not quarantine, and I did not think about it. And this is like 18 years ago, but still, that was like, to this day, that is why my mind is like, I'll never forget that. It only gives you you get one shot at that, and it'll scar you forever. You know what I mean? It's
100%.
So that was a pretty big fail. I did not quarantine. Yeah. So
if there was like one thing you could change about the industry, this is my last question, and it can be as myopic as like, in New York State, there's this fucking law, and I want to change that, or like, I just want all the Chads and Brads to leave. Like, it can be whatever you want. It's just kind of like what's on your mind right now, as far as like something that you think should be changed.
Yeah. So here's my take on all this. Like, I think having all these different walks of life builds a playing field, right? It allows levels to the game to be established. Absolutely. Right? So I think having people that are interested in what has been going on is good, because it allows an opportunity for the people that have been spending all their time and brain power and energy and investment on this, a chance to rise. And I think it's really difficult to swallow some of the rules and regs in some of these states. I think it's really unhealthy in the way that they've been put together, and the wrong individuals are brought to draft and design these bills. So therefore, by design, they're broken, and the broken, design, pours out into licensing and into fees and into all these things that hinder the people that actually are fit to be doing this. No access to do it, and I think that's really troubling from that perspective. Yes, you do need, with my older hat on, my older self hat, you do need investment, but you also need wherewithal in terms of how to like run a business. My younger self would say you don't, seriously. But I think it's important to recognize that you do need someone around you and a team around you to do this. And it's a different ball game, and we all have to learn together, as I have learned myself over time. That I think, I'd like to see this. Ultimately, I'd like to see the rules and regs and the ability and hierarchy of getting a license go away, because then it builds a hierarchy and a playing field that allows people a shot. And I think that's something that is not talked about enough. And well, it is talked about, but I think it's talked about in a not enough. Yeah. So that's what I would say is,
I think that's dope.
Like we need access for people to participate. There's a lot of people that have the skill set to be here. So I'd like to see more of that.
Very cool. I think that's very dope, Colin. I think that's sound advice. Let's London, I don't know if you're there, but I'm happy to open it up to hey, how's it going, buddy?
Good, brother. Good.
Happy to Is that a tray of cuts, or is that a fresh veg plant?
Those are veg. Those are
nice.
about 2 weeks away from going into flower tent. I do have a couple questions for Colin. Colin, where do you get your seeds from now?
Good question. I get my seeds from all over the place. Directly from the breeder most of the time. And if there was a breeder that I would recommend, there's several. I mean, listen, Bodhi, Masonic, Matt Riot. I think that, Todd McCormick's doing some cool stuff with bringing back the old skunk varietals and hazes, if you're interested in those. Chris at Relic Seeds has got some great stuff. And Thug Pug is also incredible. His stuff is great for washing and hashing. Some of Compound stuff is good for washing, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton of people, but there's so many great breeders today, man. It's it's hard.
Okay, last question for you. What is, like, you mentioned that you've done a little bit of land races before. Is there a specific memorable one that you would like to mention, or that really stood out for you?
I'd have to go back in the notes, but let me see if I can quickly pull it up. I think.
What is that, RJ? Sorry.
I think some of the coolest stuff that we've run is some of the Nepali region stuff that's been. Some of it's had these like purple and pink hues to the flower, and it's been kind of cool to see the diversity within that stock, because it's really all over the place. I mean, there's like straight finger, grin spoon style finger like, sativas, all the way to like heavy indicas that are, they're just all over the place. It's really inconsistent. So that region in general, but a lot of the hues and the colors and the resin that we've gotten from those plants have been really special. And some of the Iranian stuff too, also, that's been a highlight.
Awesome. Well, that's a great answer. Ilya thanks you 822. Appreciates. Jonathan says hi. I think it's been an awesome show. I appreciate coming and getting to sit in the background and nerd out back here. It's been pretty fun. I think other than that, those were the only two questions that you didn't end up actually answering in the process of talking. So I don't really have much else from the audience there, gentlemen. Shall we? Well, I do have one from Peter. Peter wondered, in Peter's Future Cannabis Project, if you would be interested in playing us out and tickle those ivories behind you on the outro.
It's okay to say no to things, man.
Do I have anything ivory to say on the outro? Always, man. All right, so.
Oh no!
No,
said,
tickle the ivories. Play us out.
Oh, you want me to play? Outro. Oh, you want me to turn on?
I am just sending
That's
the
why I
request
thought you made that
give it
face,
to me.
not because he was asking
I mean,
me for something.
so here's the thing: if I turn on this stuff, there's a whole system here that's going to turn on, and I don't know how that's going to work.
Well, I think next time we'll have to.
Yeah, I think
to get
like
you
honestly,
on
because I don't have a microphone. I'm using the speakers on this monitor. But if there's, let's plan on it next time when I have like time to turn them on. Like I have a piano here to the left of me, and there's actually a full piano to the left of me, and I could play, but it's not an acoustic piano. I have to hook it into this system. So.
Well, we'll have to try next time and have a little bit of fun with that. Do you guys have anything else? Peter's clapping. He says thank you for that. We'll have to get you on it.
No, thanks very much for coming on, Colin.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been great having you. Yeah, we all connected on Clubhouse many months ago. So it's nice to reconnect and have kind of further conversations and yeah, it's been great having you on, man. Really appreciate your time, and gonna have to get you on some more moving forward.
Yeah, anytime. Once we get through the new year, I'd love to come back and share some of the things that we're doing. I think it'd be a great time to do that. You could definitely get into a bit more behind the curtain stuff that we've been doing that we are not talking about right now. So
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
we'll love the developments. Awesome, guys. I'm gonna play the little mini outro that I have, and we'll end the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks again.